Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I am your host, Joey DeMeglio, and the Rangers passed big tests against the Bruins and Maple Leafs as they came back to win in overtime on Saturday in Boston before winning 5-2 in Toronto on Tuesday. Joining me today to look at the Rangers defense is NHL Network analyst Mike Kelly. Thanks for joining me, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, happy to do it, Joey. I'm doing well and getting close to holidays and Christmas and all that. So it's a good time of year.
Yeah. Holiday freeze is I think the holiday freeze just started or it's coming up soon because
last night.
Yeah. There's now there's only a couple games before the new year. I know they play those New Year's Eve games, which are fun, and the World Junior Championships are coming up, which is always fun. I love watching those.
Yep.
But you work at Sportlogiq, right? That's how you pronounce it. What a cool name, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. Logic with the Q. I love that.
Yeah, it gets mispronounced a lot, so good on you for getting it right. We're in Montreal, so like people will throw the French kind of twang to it, or Sportlogiq IQ. We hear them all, but you nailed it.
Yeah. What do they say? Like Sportlogiq?
Oh yeah, we get that one.
Yeah.
Which is all good. Like as long as people are talking about you, we're happy. So
yeah. But what got you into analytics and working there?
Look, I've always had a fascination with kind of the numbers side of things and trying to be able to quantify things and better understand things. That goes back to when I was, a kid in elementary school. So that's always been there. Professionally, I was working in television and just kind of wanted to understand the game the best I could. I would work all these nights with ex-players, ex-coaches, and kind of learn the way that they saw the game. And that was really valuable to me. And then I just kind of wanted to know, well, who's doing the best work in this area, and found there was a couple of companies doing this type of work. And when I kind of dug into what Sportlogiq was doing, I was blown away, to be honest. The technology that they were using was unlike anything I had seen in hockey for sure. And got connected with them, and the TV work I was doing, that came to an end. Because of a relocation, and the timing just kind of worked out where, they wanted to bring me in, and I was available, and I've been there for about 8 years now. Just, from the time that I got there to kind of what we're doing now, it's been an amazing ride to be a part of this small startup in the beginning to being, really the dominant player in this area, in this sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was looking at it. That's pretty crazy. They use AI to get their stats. Is that what they do?
It's a combination of things. Yeah, but a computer vision tracking system, which incorporates machine learning and AI in terms of how the system tags events and players, and it kind of teaches itself how to do it as well. So it's we're taking in the broadcast feed the same way that you would watch a game. And we have models that are built to detect players, detect different events that occur on the ice, hundreds of different events in a game, thousands of different data points, and much smarter people than me that are responsible for making all that happen. And what you end up getting out of it is a lot of really good information that you can then, apply to understand the game better, do predictive work, all sorts of things.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about, that, like how they track the stats, because I know it's kind of difficult on the publicly available sites because there's a lot of discrepancies between like the SVAs, the score venue adjusted stats versus like the regular 5v5 stats, like on Natural Stat Trick, for example, or on Money Puck. Like, how does it sort out like those discrepancies? Is it like one, you said like a model that it has to follow, like picking between scoring and tracking analytics? Is it subjective, or is it as objective as it could possibly be with using AI?
Yeah, the latter for sure. And we have to be, right? We have to have strict definitions on what we believe a scoring chance is to be consistent. Like if you go and ask 32 NHL head coaches, what's a scoring chance? You're getting 32 different answers, and probably a fist fight somewhere in there with all these guys confident that theirs is the right one. So that is a subjective thing. We have objective definitions for it to maintain that consistency. The computer work is a big part of it. We also have people. Like it's not just you push a button at the start of the night and all this magic happens. There's a human element to it as well of quality checking, and the system will actually flag itself if it determines it can't detect something. If 7 guys go into a corner and battle for a puck and it pops out, and the system itself can't detect it. We have people there to do these things also. So, but that's where you have very strict definitions on what the different events are and how they, how they're logged. But at the same time, this is why nothing's perfect, because if you're going to say a scoring chance is a shot within a certain area, well, there's one that's going to be right in front of the net that's perfect, and there's another that's going to be right on the corner, or one that's an inch over that isn't. But that's just the reality of any kind of work you're doing in this area.
So at the end of the day, somebody has to watch like every single game to check those flags and stuff. That's crazy. That's a lot. So like it's a pretty big staff then. It has to be.
Yeah, it is. Between full-time employees, part-time people that are responsible for watching these games as they're happening as well. It's a good crew. It's evolved over the years. Obviously, I think I was employee 11 or 12. I was there pretty early. But it's been really cool to see the company grow and to see the kind of footprint that we have now.
And so that's probably like the main reason, like the technology there is the difference between like a public site like NST or Money Puck, right? Like because those publicly available sites, I bet I haven't talked to the people that run those sites yet, but I'm pretty sure they just use like their own people to watch. Like they don't have AI or immersive technology like you guys do.
No, like they'd be scraping NHL data, which is what you would do in that situation. And what I always say about that is that the publicly available sites, like they're fantastic. If you're a hockey fan and you're just trying to learn a little bit more, they're a great resource to use. The way they're really smart people that have built these, and the things that they're tracking, the way they're presenting it, all very, very good. Reality is, like when you're talking about building models, like we have granularity as a private company that you wouldn't have in the way that the game's tracked and the way that they're getting their information. So there's going to be differences. But I have so much respect for the people that have built these sites and the work that they've done to really help hockey fans be more educated, because I know from talking to fans, I know from being in the media industry for almost 2 decades and in analytics for 10 years, hockey fans are smart and they want to learn and they want to know more about the game. Why does my team play well? Why do they suck? Why is my favorite player great? And those sites have really helped kind of push that conversation forward.
I remember I'll be honest with you, like I used to hate analytics. Like I used to think it had no place in the game. And I was always frustrated by it because I could never understand it. I'm like, what does this mean? What does like CF and XGF mean? Like that always never made sense to me until I talked to someone within the Rangers community. Shout out to Drew Way. And now I follow it like almost religiously, which is crazy. Like after every game, I'm looking, all right, this guy looked like he had a really good game. Let's see how good he was. And it was like, oh wow, like 75% scoring chances for when this guy was on the ice. But like that the terminology.
I got a commercial. My fireplace is gone. Boo. Let me get that back. I like that fireplace.
That whole thing. I was completely fooled.
Kind of like that pizza too, though, to be honest.
Yeah, I was completely fooled. I thought that was a real tree.
No chance.
It looks good. Like the setup, like it's indented in the wall. It looks like it's.
I sit there, I do my work. I feel like, I have a tree upstairs too, and it's nice, but like that's a pretty legit setup. So
yeah, no,
good ambiance.
I believe it. Yeah, no, that's a good way to describe it. But back to what I was saying about like the terminology, like Corsi for, expected goals for.
Yeah,
those public sites use that like Money Puck and Natural Stat Trick, but Clear Sight Analytics and even the NHL with their new edge statistics, like they do offensive zone time. Shot attempts is what the NHL site uses. Is that just the reason why like the private sites do that with like shot attempts? Is that so it's easier for people to see? Because I know to understand, I mean, because I know when I look at shot attempts, it's like, oh, all right, every time you shoot the puck. But like Corsi 4, I had no idea what that was. I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, I think that's been a bit of a barrier, over the years, is just the language. I always try in everything that I do, even though I'm using, at times very complex information for an average fan, to drill it down to a point that I know I'm not going to lose them. Like you can have great information. You can have a great angle on a story or an analysis that you're going to do. And if you can't connect with like the macro, the most people, most hockey fans, doesn't matter how good it is, you're going to lose them. And then what's the point? So I think some of the language has been a bit of a barrier for some people. I would say shot attempts. It's literally what it is. Part of it, yes. And I think, again, it's to each individual, like how much do you want to dig into this world? How much do you want to learn? If you really want to go there, then you're going to figure out what Corsi 4 means, and you're going to move past it. But for me, like it's a general rule, like in the work that I do, whether it's NHL Network, talking to other people, whatever it is, I try to simplify things as much as possible, because kind of what you're doing in analytics work is complex enough. I think if the language on certain metrics is, more complex than it needs to be, it's just not necessary.
Like, so if you're describing something like a shots off a cycle, for example, is that like from your definition, how is that like described, just as an example?
Well, we track cycles, scoring chances, whether different types, whether it's off the rush or forecheck or rebound cycle, whatever it may be. And again, I think most fans understand that, right? The difference between a rush chance and a cycle chance. I don't think you're losing anybody there.
I gotcha. Yeah. So in terms of the Rangers now, like factoring them into the equation, like with these analytics, what do they look like? We'll start like offensively this year. It seems, well, recently it seems like they're sacrificing a lot of that defense to play more offense, because they're getting a lot of games where they have double-digit high danger chances, but they give up a lot of chances as well. What is it looking like offensively for the Rangers?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, they're hovering around, 10th in goals, expected goals. It looks like from a process standpoint, kind of what they're scoring is what they should be overall. We know about the power play, and their special teams have been really good all year. If you're going to nitpick, maybe you're like, all right, let's boost the 5-on-5 play. And Shesterkin, the bar is so high for himself, right? Like if he can't hit 2 years ago or even last year, you're like, oh, what's wrong with Shesterkin, when he's still a very good goalie. But I'm sure he'd be the first to tell you he'd find another level as well. They're a good team. I mean, the points percentage, the record, it doesn't lie. They're a very good team. Offensively, and I think you hit the nail on the head in a way where, like, offensively they create quite a bit off the rush. They also give a lot back, and that's always the yin and the yang of it, right? Some of the best teams over the last few years are the teams that can really win that differential. Like, let's create a lot, let's not give a lot back. I always use Colorado as an example over the last number of years. That's probably done that better than anybody. Vancouver's doing a decent job defending off the rush this year. They don't create a lot, but they score a ton. I mean, that's got to come down at some point. But you win that transition differential, you're going to be in really good shape. So you're right. New York's creating a lot that way. They can work on giving up a bit less, and that'll just kind of, you always try to find things to try to boost your overall play as you go through the year, even when you're playing really well, which they are.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting you brought up Colorado, because Steve Valiquette was talking, I think according to his model, like ClearSight Analytics, the year before Colorado won the Cup, according to his model, defending the rush, they were one of the worst teams the year before they won the Cup. And then the year they won the Cup, the following year, they were like second or first. They made a huge improvement, and it's like correlated. Like if you look at the teams that have won the Cup, they're always like in the top 5 defending against the rush. And is that have to do, can the Rangers improve on that? Like, what's the best way to do that? Is it just not having defenders pinch, or like not taking as many chances as they are? What's the solution there?
Well, there's a lot of things that go into it. Like you talk about pinching in the ozone. If you're defending, like every team does it, right? When the D comes down the wall to try to cut a play off, you want to have guys back, a forward back, your F3 to support. Neutral zone play, how you're defending controlled breakouts. There's lots of things that go into it. I'd have to, and I'm always careful with this because, like, I follow Steve's stuff. Obviously, I watch the Rangers broadcast. He's awesome at what he does, and I really like his work in general. I don't know, when you say like defending the rush, that could mean a lot of things. How many chances you're giving up, how many entries, how many goals, and they're all going to be different to some degree. Just in terms of like chances and goals, top of my head, Colorado for me, even before they won the Cup, were pretty good. But again, that we could be talking about different definitions, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure of that. But yeah, like I don't know that you need to be elite defending off the rush specifically to win a Stanley Cup. I think it's a byproduct typically of teams that are good defensively, and you need to be good defensively to win a Stanley Cup. So it certainly goes into it. But yeah, like Vegas, very good. You look at past winners, there's no question that they've been better than not at doing that specifically. And it's one part of the game. It's if you're great at defending the rush and you get killed if a team chips it in and starts working the puck in the offensive zone, well, you're not going to be a very good team either. So lot that goes into it.
Yeah, don't quote me on the stat that I pulled up. That's one that came off just off the top memory. It's not even in my notes here. I just remembered it because I was listening to something a week or two ago. They were talking about it because the Rangers had a dip in play where they had. I'm gonna even bring it up. Like they had a few games in a row. It was 6 games in a row where they're giving up double digit high danger chances again.
Yeah.
That's
well,
not
like
factoring like the rush. That's just overall 5v5.
Yeah, for sure. And I bring everything back to differentials. Like if you create one rush chance per game and give up none every game, you're going to score more off the rush than you give up, right? Now, that's an extreme example, but you might give up 10 rush chances a game, which would be a huge number. Well, if you're getting 15, who cares, right? I watched like even Tampa Bay in their heyday when they won a couple of cups. They weren't elite defensively in terms of what they gave up. Like they were good. They weren't top of the league, but they produced a lot offensively, and we're happy to at times play a game where like we're going to take chances and we're going to get our looks offensively. We're going to give some up too, but we're going to bet that Point and Stamkos and Kucherov and Hedman and those guys are going to score on more of their chances than the other team's going to score on our stud goalie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That tended to be true more often than not, right?
Yeah, that's a good point that you bring up. A lot of teams don't have that goaltender like a Vasilevsky or like a Shesterkin, so they have to be good at. Like,
yeah,
you look at Vegas too because they had a arguably third string goalie. Hill came in and did an awesome job in the playoffs this past season, but I mean he wasn't the starter, right? So they had to be good because
and like totally true. This is why, like Carolina at the start of the year, right? Tough start, really good defensive team. It made it the goaltending, which was bad, that much worse. That they were that bad behind a really good defensive team who have been better. Like give them credit, but like save percentage to me is really a team stat, like goals against average. You have to be able to separate as much as you can goaltending from what your team's allowing. Vegas, really good defensive team, so it stands to reason you could throw competent goalies behind them, whoever they may be, and you're still going to get good results. Mm-hmm. But the thing I'm always careful with when we talk about Vegas, Adin Hill played great in the playoffs. Like he really did. Above the great defensive team in front of him, he was fantastic. So I make sure to give him credit as well for how well he played.
Yeah, he really was. He really was great. He blew me away watching.
Yeah,
him in the playoffs.
And like Colorado won the cup a couple years ago, and not to take anything away from Darcy Kemper, because especially in the closeout game, he was brilliant and he had big moments and he didn't wilt in big moments. But that team was great defensively and he was pretty good. Like he wasn't elite in the playoffs himself, but he didn't have to be on a team like that. Mm-hmm. He just couldn't cost them, and he didn't.
Right. That probably would have been a better example for me to use for like not having the goaltender. But I wanted to ask you the big question. Another big question I wanted to ask you is, at the start of the season, the Rangers defensively were outstanding. Towards the end of October, they were one of the best teams, right? Mm-hmm. I saw you posted something. How has it looked since then? Because, you know, like I said, seems like they've given up a lot recently, but they are getting a lot of chances. But
yeah,
it's just something we've noticed as fans that they give up a lot too now.
Yeah, kind of. Generally from the first month forward, it's been giving up more. Not to I would say an alarming rate, but yeah, they were so good off the hop. New coach comes in, and not probably surprising to see them play pretty well defensively, and they're still an above average team that way. But I agree with you. Like recently, it's been a little bit more of trade chances and a little looser, I guess, might be a good word to use for that. But it's like you always evaluate every side of it. I find I try not to go too far into things when a team is winning as much as this team is, and a team is as good as this team is. Like honestly, they are. The thing I didn't see coming at all, Jonathan Quick, like he went from playing behind a very good defensive team in LA and putting up terrible numbers last year to playing behind a good defensive team in New York, but not as good as LA, and he's been great. So I don't know what the Rangers saw there. I didn't love the signing when I saw it, but they clearly knew something I didn't.
Yeah, they didn't really have that much cap space. Of course, there's other goaltenders that were on the market you could have had probably for the same price, but I bet that veteran experience factored into it. And the fact that they have Benoit Allaire as the goalie coach, they
That
probably
doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. And he didn't, to be honest, like Quick didn't look that good in preseason. I know preseason's not really a good indicator of, where a player is going to be. For example, Alexis Lafreniere frankly looked horrible in the preseason, but he's looked really good so far this season. And Capo
Yeah.
Caco looked great in the preseason, but not so great in the regular season. Unfortunately, he's out long term with an injury.
Yeah.
The next thing I wanted to ask Alexis Lafreniere, how like much of an improvement, how big of an improvement do you think he's made this season compared to last year?
Oh, better for sure. Like you look at even if you just look at his rookie season to now, like the points per game are kind of steadily going up. And I'm sure Ranger fans wish it started higher and was even higher now. First overall pick, and like that's going to just be labeled to him, forever. So I get it, but the start of the year, like he had a lot of jump, like things like, controlled entries, rush chances, were leading to better offensive numbers for him. It's kind of stabilized a little bit. And I think that's he's still such a young player, right? Like, and he's pretty unique where he was a first overall pick that came to a good team. Like they Rangers won the lottery, right? They weren't a bottom team. If he goes to a bottom team, he's getting first line minutes. He's getting first line power play. Like he's getting all these things that he didn't get when you start with a good team. So some of that is probably influenced kind of where he's at today. But I think in his case, consistency, right? That first month, really great. That's great. It's kind of tapered a bit. Can you carry it month over month over month and really start to put together longer stretches where we're seeing the kind of player he can be? Like you watch games where you're like, man, he was a difference maker tonight, right? And it's not to say that's going to be 82 games every year, but can that number grow every year as he gets more experience under his belt, plays better, gets put in more prominent roles? That's what I'd be looking for.
Mm-hmm. So it's like he kind of went from being invisible most of the time during his first couple of seasons to now he's making an impact on these games. Like you notice him. Like last night,
Yes,
he had the one goal, went off of I think it was off of Riley on the power play, but in the first period, he had a shift where he caused like 2 or 3 turnovers that led to like great scoring chances for Panarin. Panarin missed the net on one of them, and then I think he didn't raise it on the second one. He was aiming for the top right corner, but then he didn't get it. But I mean, that improvement in and of itself, I've noticed that even though he's not getting on the score sheet.
Yeah, and I think that's nobody's going to score all. Well, Austin Matthews might score all the time, but there's not many players that are going to score all the time, right? You can make positive impacts in so many other ways. And like the Rangers, they've got guys that, like, if they're not scoring, they're not really doing anything. A lot of teams do. So be it. Lafreniere doesn't score enough to be that guy, and he's not. But I agree with you. Like when he's moving his feet, he can be disruptive and force those turnovers and be a little physical and have a bit of an edge to him. And then maybe you don't get any points in the game, but you've helped create a few looks, or you're on the right side of the shot and expected goal share. I agree with you where I've watched games where I'm like, man, he's noticeable, and then he scores, or then he gets a point.
Yeah.
And sometimes he doesn't, but piece those games together more often, right? And like you're going to earn trust. And as the years go by and other guys get older and the team, changes, then you're hoping, I think, that he becomes a real top line, difference making type of player.
Mm-hmm. I actually think he's helping Panarin a lot this season, even though maybe the point totals won't show that, because Panarin always seems like he needs like a forechecking right winger on his line. If you go back when he was with Jesper Foss with David Quinn as the head coach, that was one of his best seasons as a Ranger. It was like his first season, but it was, that was his MVP. It was a nomination for Hart Trophy that season. He would have had 100 points if the season went a full 83 games. Um, but like, do you see like how that having that type of player, a guy like Lafreniere that's in on the forecheck, wins puck battles, how that impacts Panarin?
Well, Panarin's not going to do it, right?
Yeah,
So you need
absolutely.
someone to do it.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of alluding to Panarin when I was talking about guys when he's got the puck on his stick, he's one of the most dangerous players in the world. But he's not a guy that's going to go and get it back. And it's why, like, I look at the Rangers last year at the deadline, the playoffs, and all that. Like, I think they went out and got Tarasenko because I don't think they thought they were going to get Kane, and then they got Kane, and you're not going to not get Patrick Kane. But now you got three guys in your top six who have virtually no impact on the game when they don't have the puck. So Panarin's all world. We know that. I think Trocheck's been unbelievable this season for the Rangers in so many different ways, right? And all of that helps. But yeah, the more that guys can win a puck back, create another possession in the ozone, another sequence for a guy like Panarin, 100% that's going to help you produce more offense.
Mm-hmm. So you think the Rangers are definitely more balanced this year compared to after the trade deadline last season?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the way you summed that up was actually pretty good. Like when you think about it, those guys that they acquire, they're not really the type of guys that are going to go in and win a puck that's behind the goal line, let's say, or in the corners, for example.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's not part of their game, and they're all veteran guys. Like they're not turning into, grinders at this point of their career. Like nor should they. It's fine, but that's where you need different archetypes and different styles to complement each other. You can't. All of those guys are great. Like I don't know that three Artemi Panarins on one line would be the best line in the world necessarily, right? Even though he's an all-world player, so you needed some of that balance. And like even statistically, every year in the playoffs, teams dump pucks in more than the regular season in general. There is fewer good looks off the rush than in general. There are more puck battles in general. Doesn't surprise anyone listening because you watch the games, you kind of see it. But see, I have to have those elements to some degree.
yeah, and that's good you bring up like the players' play styles because it's easy to lose. Panarin had like 1 or 2 points in that playoff series, and a lot of people were saying Rangers should probably move on for him, or it'd be a good idea for them to trade him. And look at how he's come out this season. He's not really that type of player that's going to go. He's not at all actually that type of player that's going to go win a puck battle for himself. But he needs the puck, so someone's got to get it to him. Do you so like in terms of effort, you know what I mean? Like that's one big thing over the past couple of years that fans have been harping on. But this season, recently actually, against teams like the Senators or the Sharks, teams that at the bottom of the conference or the bottom of the league, the
Yeah.
Rangers are giving up a lot of chances, like high danger chances. Do you see it as them giving up or playing down to their opponents? And then when they play like a team like the Kings, they only give up 5 the entire game at 5v5.
Yeah, it's a good question. There are some, year over year, very good teams where it looks like that can happen to them. This could be some element of truth to it. I'd have to literally go back and look at every game individually to try to flesh that out a little better. But one thing, like Ottawa, for all of its warts, they produce a good amount of offensive opportunity for themselves. They've got some troubles defensively and in goal for sure, but San Jose's played better than the disastrous start they had. He gives the team some credit, but yeah, it's a fair point. Like the Rangers, I thought the game against Toronto recently, it was a tight game. And you talked about the bounce off Riley Lafreniere they had like 3 bounces that went in that game, and otherwise tight game, but they played well. And like any team, they've had some games where they haven't been as good. So there could be some of that. Definitely wouldn't discount it. And who knows over the course of 82 games, like why it happens. Like you're going to wake up the next 82 days, and some days you're going to suck at everything you do for some reason, right? So am I. it's hard to nail it down. But yeah, you wonder sometimes if certainly I don't think guys take the foot off the gas thinking, we got this team tonight, like let's cruise. But I do think, and I know that there's teams that you circle the calendar and you're like, we got to bring it against these guys. LA would be one of those teams for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like you're bringing it up as if like, it's 82 games, like you're not overly concerned about it. You know what I mean? Like and I'm
Not
kind of the
really.
same way too. Like I'm looking at this. The Rangers have got off to a great start. They're winning a lot of games. It was like what 18 of their first 24, 18 of their first 26, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Really, you can't ask for more. And then they're giving up a lot of chances off the rush, high danger chances at even strength. Uh, you just chalk that up to just adversity.
It could be a lot of things, honestly. Like it could be, I mean, you talk about their opponent, they just played the Maple Leafs, right? They've been battling this flu bug in the room for the last week. It can always be so many different things. I think if you're like a Ranger fan and you're a little concerned, we play these teams that aren't that great and we've lost some of these games. Like, would you rather lose those games and beat the good teams or win those games and consistently lose to the good teams? Mm-hmm. It's a good question. I don't have a great answer for you off the top of my head as to why that's been the case. If there's been some games like that, but it's a good team. They're going to have some bad nights. Other, bad teams are going to have good nights. I wouldn't be overly concerned about it, I guess would be my point. Mm-hmm. If the Rangers get the Sharks in the Cup final,
yeah,
wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen.
but I said, like, we talk about takes, right? Ice cold takes, hot takes, whatever. We do like a bold predictions every year on this analytics show I do with the NHL Network every summer. And I want to say it was like 2020. It was a few years ago, but I said the Rangers would win the Cup by 2025. That was my take at the time. And I'm running out of runway here. I got 2 years left for them to do it, but I don't know. How good would a Rangers Kings repeat of 2012 be? That'd be a sick Cup final this year. And possible, right? I like both those teams.
I was thinking the exact same thing when they played them a couple weeks ago. I was like, how crazy would it be if these two teams met again in the finals? Like,
yeah.
Like I was a kid. I was in 8th grade. I remember watching them. I remember my heart was shattered when Martinez scored that overtime goal.
Oh, man, Lundqvist did like everything within his power. Like the Kings were the better team for me, no question. Like Lundqvist was so good. It was a good final.
Best 5-game series I've ever seen.
There you go. Oh, there were some good games in it for sure.
Yeah.
Cross your fingers and you obviously hope not. But if Shesterkin for whatever reason wasn't run, Jonathan Quick's now in the Cup final playing against the K. Like you can work yourself up into so many different cool scenarios.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, how crazy would it be if not only the Rangers play the Kings 10 years later, but it was Jonathan Quick like winning?
That'd be nuts.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah,
but, I don't know. I like that ice cold take. I like that. I think that's good. Doesn't necessarily need to be. You're not saying guaranteed prediction. You know what I mean? Like it's just floating it out there, putting it into the ether for people to think about.
There you go. Yeah,
that's something to think about there. I have a question here from a fan, Gloverton. Do you guys notice Fox on the power PP1 has been a little shaky? I don't know. What do you think about that, Mike? The last couple of games.
Yeah, good question. Again, I think I have to drill down to try to see if there's any kind of meaningful difference. I try as a general rule not to work myself up too much about certainly a small sample of a couple games versus even a small sample of like 10 or 15 games, which in the grand scheme of things isn't huge. Like we just watched Pittsburgh's power play go 0 for a million, and then we couldn't stop scoring power play goals, right? So even games as a whole, but then you drill down into special teams, which is a handful of minutes every night. I don't have a great answer, honestly, off the top of my head on that, other than I wouldn't be overly concerned just because of the type of player that he is, which is obviously a very good one. The power play has been overall good, so wouldn't be too nervous about it.
Yeah, it could just be maybe still harboring that injury a little bit.
Maybe. Yeah, and those are that's the tricky thing. You never know, right? A guy comes back and I don't know how many guys come back truly 100% from every injury. Think about Connor McDavid. Like, he came back, played in the outdoor game, maybe a little early because he wanted to be in that game, but he didn't look right for a week or two after that even. And now he's just full McDavid mode.
Yeah.
So it's a good point to bring up, and you never really know those things because they don't tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. And hockey guys, they'll play through anything. Those guys.
Yes.
I think Lindgren took a pretty big hit last year, and
he's taken a few of them lately. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's nails though. I love that guy.
Yeah, I do too. Fans love him. He was the extra effort award winner for the Rangers last season. Guy blocked all the shots, bleeds almost every game, every other game, maybe. I don't know, that hit from Pastrnak. I was very, very surprised that Pastrnak would throw that kind of hit, because I don't know him to be that kind of player.
Yeah, those guys had a little something going, I think, in that game, anyways. And I don't know. I've heard defensemen that played in the league talk about, well, you can't put yourself in that position, and that was a tough one. I think that, like, to me, that was one where there's a little bit of that, but also a little bit of the hit too.
Yeah, because I have a lot of time.
Right. And I've seen hits though over the last few years where you're like, you can't really come out and say it because, like, a guy might be hurt, and you obviously never want to see that, but you're like, you can't skate with your head down, or you can't turn at the last second when you got pressure. Like, there is an element of it in general, for sure. I think that seems to exist.
That's how I feel about the Trouba hits. Like, half the time, it's like the player's head is down.
I know. It's like every time he lays a guy out in the middle of the ice, it's like, oh, suspension. You're like, that guy had his head down and got popped, because Trouba, unlike some players, a lot of players today, just the way that the game's played, he'll step up in places where most guys won't. So you could be carrying the puck out on an exit and think like, oh, I got a bit of time, that you don't, because he's on the ice.
Yeah.
Man, he catches some guys with some big hits, and like, that open ice hitting is a bit of a lost art, I think. And I still like watching him play, because more often than not, it's a really clean hit that he delivers in a place where sometimes guys aren't expecting it.
Yeah, people come for entertainment, and, like, you need that. I love
big hits gets me out of my seat. That's for sure. It's great.
Yeah, and followed by a fight or two. Like, just everything is great. Like, when seeing that stuff, you hope everybody's okay. Like, there's no injuries involved, but it's like, that's the entertainment value of hockey. Like, that's the part of it that'll I don't think should ever go away, in my opinion. Yeah.
No, I agree. And there's all sorts of theories and debates around it, right? Like, the younger players today, all the work on skill work, and has any of the kind of thinking the game awareness been lost? Maybe there's all, theories. Maybe some of it's true. It's hard to kind of quantify it, but all that to say, I still love a big hit for sure. You don't see as many of them as you used to, and some of the hits that we used to see, you don't want to see those anymore.
Yeah,
good that they're out of the game too.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That, like, I feel like a lot of those hits, when I first started watching, a lot of those career-ending hits, like the Savard hit or the Cook hit on Savard, like that. I haven't seen. You don't see those too much anymore.
That's been kind of taken out of the game, which is great. Like, and you're right. Back then, you used to see those more than you'd ever want to see them. I don't know. It was a while ago, maybe a year ago. Like, I had this Rock'em Sock'em videos, Don Cherry. I don't know if you've seen those videos.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I found this old, like, set. It's got all of the DVDs, right? And, like, this was obviously from a long time ago. We were even talking about DVDs, but I put one in, like, number 4 or whatever. And they've got, like, best goals of the year, like, best hits. I'm watching the best hits. I'm like, these are double-digit suspensions happening today. Like, it is insane. Guys, chicken wing guys across the blue line, like, just crazy stuff. You're like, mate, that was, that stuff just happened back then. It was wild.
Yeah. And to think those guys, sometimes some of them would just not wear helmets. It was crazy.
Oh,
I don't know how they were able to do it.
Different game, man. Like, it was,
hockey guys are crazy.
Yeah. Tough for sure.
That part has definitely never changed.
No, I mean, like, you think about Scott Stevens when you think about big hitters, right? Back in, 90s, that kind of stuff. And I remember the first time I met him was at the NHL Network when he was doing a bit of work there, going back a few years. Nicest guy in the world. Like, had really good chats with him the handful of times I worked with him. But just walking up to him to shake his hand the first time, I was like, oh boy, like this is a large man, big hands, big dude. Like I said, super nice guy, couldn't be better. But just thinking about like that guy, coming at you, like, oh, the Ken Danico, who I know from the network really well, like,
Yeah.
these are big, strong, tough guys. So a lot of respect for the guys that give the hits, and a lot of respect for the guys that take them in the league too.
Oh yeah. You definitely don't want to be on the bad side of the guys that throw those big hits, though.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyways, Mike, thanks so much for joining. I appreciate you coming on. We'll have to have you on again sometime soon, maybe after the season.
Yeah, happy to do it, Joey. Appreciate you having me, and you got a good team this year, so it's a fun group to watch.
Yeah, I hope that prediction that you made comes true within either this year or next year.
This year or next? Well, I made the prediction, so it's going to come true. It's just a matter of whether it's this year or next year, right?
Yeah. I'm crossing my fingers, man. Like I'm hopeful.
Yeah, awesome.
All right.